To this day, I cannot describe what I saw in those cameras in words which would do justice to the terror I felt, but I'll do my best to just transcribe it here. Subject 1 was standing in his room facing the door, still motionless, but on the floor in front of him was the body of a security guard. I couldn't tell what happened to him, but whatever it must have been gruesome because his side was cut open and blood was smeared on the floor and walls in a way that indicated that he died a quick death from a sharp slice. Subject 2 was laying dead on the floor, dried up blood caking his mouth, eyes, nose, and ears. Subject 3 sat on his bed and stared at the wall in front blankly, just like the previous night. He was whispering something, but none of us knew nor wanted to know what. So when one of the staff members suggested turning up the volume, his idea was quickly shut down and the camera feed muted. Subject 4 was the one who froze my bone to the marrow, because at first you couldn't see him anywhere in the feed. And then someone pointed to the slight movement of something in the upper corner of the camera. Miller used a button to move the camera upward, and when it reached the ceiling, some of the staff members gasped. 4 was standing on the ceiling on all fours like a spider, his head twisted at an unnatural angle. At the movement of the camera, the subject jerked his head towards it and scurried on all fours across the ceiling towards the camera at an impossible speed, was covered with his face and bloodshot eye. The eye rapidly darted in all directions, never blinking. I had to look away because I felt so uncomfortable. Subject 5 was slamming the door with his head, leaving a bloody stain on the glass. His head thumps were changing intermittently, sometimes weak and other times loud enough for us to hear them all the way in the control room. It was an unsettling sound, to say the least. "Miller, what the fuck just happened?" one of the doctors asked, and we looked to the team lead, demanding an answer. I don't know. Miller shook his head in bewilderment, still pale. "Bullshit!" one of the guards yelled. "You know something. You did something to them with that signal of yours, didn't you?" You don't understand. This wasn't supposed to happen." "Well, what was?" Another member jumped in. "Nothing." Miller became defensive. "Nothing was supposed to happen." "Then what did you play on the radio signal?" "There was no signal." Silence fell in the room as Miller shouted those words for a brief moment. The sound of Subject 5 thumping his head on the glass permeated the room. "There never was a radio signal," Miller continued. "This was all supposed to be a placebo effect. Then how the fuck do you explain this?" I pointed to the cameras. I don't know. Maybe there was some kind of inaudible signal played on our headphones and it caused hallucinatory effects that's... Well, what I saw back there was pretty fucking real," the guard shouted. There were a few more minutes of people bickering before Miller shut them up. "I think whatever's going on here cannot be explained by logic." He looked at the cameras. Subject 4 was now on the opposite wall, moving his head left and right in a jerky motion for no apparent reason. The knocking from Subject 5 never stopped, and this seemed to agitate everyone, especially because we couldn't predict when the next knock would come and how loud it would be, causing some people to be startled. "We need to get the fuck out of here," I said. "Contact our escort." Miller sat at the master PC and opened a program which I wasn't familiar with. A chat window opened and Miller typed, "Send help now." It said, "User is typing," below for a few seconds until the message came through. "What is your emergency, team?" Miller typed frantically, making typos along the way. "Guard dead. Patient's gone crazy. Send help now." The person on the other end was typing for a few more seconds until another message came through. "Proceed with the project, team." What the hell? Some of us said in unison as Miller frantically sent more messages to the person on the other end. "Proceed with the project." The message came again before the user disconnected. We sat there in silence, with nothing but our thoughts and the incessant thumping, which grew louder by the second. I glanced at the camera feed and saw that the glass door of Subject 5's room had a significantly larger amount of blood on the door, and the subject's head and face were mutilated beyond recognition. Still, he kept at it relentlessly. Okay, Miller thought for a second. We can get out through the main door, and then we should be able to walk back from there. Might take a while, but we can do it." We all stared in silence as we shared the same feelings about Miller's suggestion. The main door was directly at the end of the corridor where the patients were being kept in the eastern section. When some members voiced their disagreement about this, Miller explained that there's also a door in the west section, but that it couldn't be opened from the inside, since it had no card reader, being created for the purpose of emergency teams coming in and to discourage project members from wandering outside and jeopardizing the project. Eventually, we agreed that we needed to send someone through the main door, who would then close it behind themselves and open the door in the west section, while leaving the subjects safely locked. In retrospect, it would have been easier to just go through the corridor and exit from the east section rather than wait for someone to come out the other side. But the problem was, no one wanted to go. Although the patients were locked up and behind heavy doors, just the thought of passing through that place filled me, and apparently everyone else, with inexplicable dread. All of us knew the doors would hold and not let the subjects break through, but there was something holding us back, something about going through that corridor that filled us with immobilizing fear. "Fuck it, I'll go," one of the staff members finally said. "I'll come with you," a guard jumped in, drawing his gun. "We'll be monitoring you via the cameras," Miller remarked with a visible relief. "The subjects are locked behind heavy-duty glass doors, so there's no way they can breach it, but still, be careful." In a matter of seconds, the two volunteers exited the control room and hesitantly entered the east section. As if on cue, the head bashing from Subject 5 abruptly stopped. All 4 subjects stopped doing whatever they were doing prior to that and stared at one same spot. It didn't take us long to realize that the subjects were staring in the direction of the 2 volunteers. It was as if they could see them through the walls even before they entered the east section. "We're in," the guard said via the radio, and we all stared at the camera feed, holding our breaths. It was unnaturally quiet, even with the 2 members' footsteps echoing through the camera feed. As the 2 of them passed by each subject's room, the subjects followed them with their gaze in unison, and then the staff member stopped in front of the door of Subject 1, unbeknownst to the guard who continued striding towards the door. Subject 1 and the staff member stared at each other in some sort of trance, with only the thick glass separating them. The entire team held their breath in anticipation, and then a terrifying realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The research team member who went in with the guard was the same one who took his headphones off earlier during the radio signal. "Fuck, the door's locked!" the guard shouted, and tried to open the bulkhead over and over, but it wouldn't budge. I was transfixed on the research member in front of the door the entire time. With a robotic motion, he pulled out his key card from the pocket and placed it to the door. I was about to shout, but it was too late. The loud beeping noise already resounded in an alarmingly loud manner, and the door slid open. "Get the hell out of there!" I yelled to the guard over the radio, who was already sprinting full-on across the hallway. The camera started glitching and freezing at this point, so we couldn't see clearly what was going on, but from the frames where the images would recover, we saw all subjects, as well as the research member, were following the guard with their gaze, not moving from their spots. The guard bumped into the door, violently opening it. "Fuck, the door's locked!" he yelled. "Miller, open it up!" By this moment, the camera feed completely cut off, and all we had to go by was the sound from the radio, which emanated the guards panting. "Miller, what are you doing? Open it!" Someone in the room yelled as the guard's pleading voice got drowned out by the group shouting. "Do you want to let those things out?" He gave me a stern look, and deep inside I knew he was right. "Please!" The guard pleaded through the radio. "For the love of God, they're coming! Please open the door, please!" We heard a few gunshots echoing through the entire facility, and between them, the guards' panicked breaths. Then silence. For a few last seconds, at least. After a few seconds, the radio crackled back to life, and there was a soft humming noise coming from it. It sounded like a lullaby, but a very unpleasant one. No one said a word for a long time, listening to that humming noise, which repeated the same irritating melody over and over. We tried turning it off, but the sound persisted. Even after smashing the radio on the ground, the humming continued. And then one of the female staff members spoke up. "We have another way out." "Well, what is it?" "I can override the west door from the master computer by inputting it as an emergency, since all the doors are electronic, but..." "But?" I asked when I saw that she hesitated. "It will open all the doors in the facility."